In this episode with Life with the Browns, we're going to talk about a book. I'm not a big book reader, but my wife is.
You're a book listener.
I'm a book listener, and yes, I am. But this book is called Leadership and Self-Deception. And I don't think of myself as being one who's self-deceived, but we will find out more right now. Welcome to Life with the Browns. I am Mr. Brown, and she is
Andrea Brown.
Andrea Brown. Today we have some guests, some really good friends. Not only are they friends, they are sponsors of some of our podcasts. Sutherland EDS. They like your teeth.
I don't think that's the tagline.
That's not the tagline, but they do.
Go with that.
They love to see you smile because they like to take care of your teeth. But we are here with Shondell and Scott Sutherland. I call him John.
John Scott.
John Scott. Well, thank you guys for joining us. And let me give a little bit of a prelim of why we're here today. We don't have a swimming pool, but we like swimming.
That's true.
Our kids love swimming. So tell everybody about our bucket list this summer.
Well, we've been making bucket lists, and one of them was swim in as many pools as possible. But we don't have a pool, so that requires
Friends.
our friends' pools.
Or strangers. Either one would work.
Comment below if you have one.
If you have a pool we can swim in.
Yeah, be on the lookout for the Brown family. If you find somebody in your pool, they're not bears, they're the Browns.
I was beginning, it seemed like a good idea when I was making this list with Sophia and Evan, and then I felt a little weird about it. Like, maybe that we don't really mean to turn all of our friends into just being useful for their pools. But then we went to somebody's house yesterday, and they're like, you know that people with pools buy a house with a pool because we want friends to come over. So they made me feel better. They said it was okay for me to use all of our friends for their pools.
So we're at the Sutherland's pool, and we're hanging out, and somebody skipped out on us. I think John Scott was supposed to be there. He never showed up. But anyway, it's a whole other subject for another day. But we're hanging out, swimming, and talking about a lot of stuff going on in our nation with all the riots and protests, things of that nature. But all of a sudden, Shondell told me about a book, and we just had a conversation about some books and things. And people tell you about books all the time because everybody think they got the best book, right? It's like, this book will change your life. And so she began to tell me about it. So I just said, hey, Sarah, remind me to look up this book when I get home. And I actually looked it up, bought it, and started listening to it. And it really blew my mind.
Yeah.
So I told my wife about it. She probably read it before I listened to the first chapter because she reads so fast. But we want to get together and talk about this book and how I think it has the potential to really be an answer for some of the turmoil and unrest we see in our culture today.
Absolutely.
I think it's applicable for marriages, for companies, for schools, just humans in general. And my wife, Andrea, you mentioned several times about the idea that a lot of books we read now are not about marriage, but they help in marriage.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I've just found that often if I have an issue where I feel stuck, surprisingly, sometimes the things that are most helpful are things that come in kind of sideways at the problem. Maybe because I tend to be kind of like touchy about things. And so most of the marriage communication books often end up dealing too much with husband and wife stereotypes. And I end up defensive about, well, that's not us. So have found business books to sometimes be the most helpful for me working on my marriage because it lets me process something in a different space, and then I get to figure out for myself how to make it work. And I feel that way in a lot of things. Sometimes we just get you have these like buzzwords and you say them and everyone just attaches all the things, all the connotations to it. And so I think it makes it really hard sometimes to have a nuanced conversation because as soon as you say one word or try to challenge a viewpoint, we just have lots of feelings about it. And so sometimes I do feel like coming in sideways with really helpful ideas or tools just make a huge difference, at least for me.
So, Shondell, you gave me the book because you noticed that I've been self-deceived about some things.
Not true.
So, I want to go around the table and just say, what is just big takeaway or something that really just something simple about the book that has helped you, has changed you, or why you like the book so much?
I've taught this class with numerous businesses, corporations, teams over and over again, and some over like 10 years. And the thing that happens is I always find a place that I'm in the box, which is going to be lingo. I always find a place that even though I teach it, I've read these books that we're talking about like 7, 8, 9 times, and I still find areas in my heart and life that I need to work on. And so that's why I love it, because I feel like as soon as you think you're not self-deceived, you find another area. And I just love personal growth like that. Right. I love to grow, and I appreciate the book because it convicts me.
So is that your confession that you did think I was self-deceived too?
No. Well, yeah, you are. We all are.
We all are. Some
You are a
respect.
very self-aware person, though, so I'll give you a little bit more grace.
All right, John, you're married to her, and she had to give you the book at some point. Did you think, hey, what are you trying to tell me?
Oh, I made him go to a class that I taught in like month 2 of us being married. So,
yeah, in fact, I had about a 3-hour drive just to get to the location where she was teaching this. And on the way, I was listening to the book in the car. And so it is a great book. I before we get into too much detail, one of you two, since you've read it recently, break down what self-deception is.
Well, I'll just start because I can relate with the story he tells about being in the bed and the baby's crying, and you don't want to get up, and you kind of nudge, or you is she gonna hear? Is she gonna hear? And I even like turn over like, and I felt that I heard that early in our marriage or with our kids, and but then I had to realize, you know what, I can do it too. And now in our marriage, for several years now, I've realized that, look, she does so much during the day, and if she can sleep throughout the night, that's better for everybody. And it's a way for me to serve her. And I'm not being like, the sacrificial lamb or anything, but the truth is I don't sleep. I'm like, okay, ears up, what's going on in my house when I'm sleeping? I'm the protector, so I'm up anyway. And so I just do it and deal with it. So, but I did at first in being our marriage, I felt like, that interaction he said in your own head, like you build those things that aren't true about the other person because you deceived yourself. Like you've betrayed yourself in that thinking. And then now it's like, oh, she's lazy, or she's this, or she's that. And, you just, and I never had language for it to this book, but I've talked about in front of people speaking, how I've had arguments with her without her knowing.
yeah.
Argument in your head.
I had arguments with her, and she don't know about it, but I'm arguing, right?
Oh, yeah.
And now I can see I had betrayed myself at some point, and now I'm in this I'm in the box, and she has no idea, and I'm mad, and she should know I'm mad, but she don't know I'm mad because I ain't said nothing about it. So I think for me that was like what it is to be self-deceived, not doing something you should do, and then you trying to justify yourself of why you didn't do it when you should be doing it. Yeah. That was for me. Yeah. What about you?
I think that kind of connects with what I think the point, like their definition of self-deception is, which is this idea of not knowing that you have a problem and resisting the possibility that you are part of the problem. And I think that was really compelling to me, even in all these conversations that we're having around a global pandemic and racial issues. And because so often I feel like in all sorts of issues that we feel like really matter and that we want to make a difference in the world, it's really easy to try to locate all of the problem outside of ourselves. And I'm not sure that we ever get to real solutions if we always see ourselves as being outside the problem group and pointing fingers at all the ways that it should change. And so I think this was really compelling to me, and also challenging, because if you're just looking for a way to solve the problem that doesn't involve you, this book is not going to give it to you. Yeah. But it's empowering to me because I really cannot do anything about changing my husband, changing
Amen.
even when I see real issues that I feel like I'm supposed to play a role in making a difference in, the only person I really have power of change over is me. And sometimes it can feel really crippling when the problem is all out there.
Yeah.
And I realized, like, recently I had this Apple Watch band, and I would work out in it with my Apple Watch, and also I smelled something. Something smelled everywhere. I took a shot. Something smelled, and it was me. It was my Apple Watch band. But how easy it is to see it's somebody else's smells. Yeah. It's not me because I did everything I'm supposed to do, but the idea that, that stink might actually be me.
Yeah.
But you're the pro, Shondell. How do you describe
a
it?
pro of self-deception. Well, I mean, I think the best way to explain it is that we all have, we're all human inside, and we have our values and our integrity. And when we have this thought about someone or an action that betrays that, so back to you're talking about the story in the book as well as yourself, Mr. Brown, when you're in the bed and you're thinking, the first thing that comes to your mind, I should get up. Mm-hmm. So that is the point. It's something that happens within you. And then immediately when we don't obey that, when we don't honor that, then you go instantly into deception because you're like, and what happens when you instantly, so when you do not honor your own values and what's going on, you instantly go into deception because you have just betrayed yourself. And at that point, the deception is you got to start justifying that in your head immediately. So what happens is immediately without knowing, like Mr. Brown, you have to make Andrea's, her vices worse and your virtues better. So
or even making up those vices. Like, she's lazy.
Totally.
I build this invisible wall of untruth because I've betrayed myself.
Yes.
And actually, I don't know if this is in the book, but I'm building this wall that creates the box that I'm in.
Bingo.
And I love the word you said, honoring what you believe.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we think, the idea of obeying or, it can be weird because do I obey myself? But do I want to honor what I and who I want to be? But in those moments, I betray who I am. Like even small things, something's on the floor. Okay, I should pick that up, but I don't pick it up.
That's right.
Because somebody else should do it, and they're lazy, and they're this, and they're that.
Right. So this is how fast it happens. The second that you think I should pick that up, and you don't do it, bam, you're in the box. Because now other people are lazy. Other people are this. It's about other people. So here's the magic. You immediately start blaming and judging other people the second you betray yourself. I mean, it's because it's called cognitive dissonance. So now I'm getting my psychology degree out for y'all. Cognitive dissonance is that you cannot believe something and behave differently. So there has to be an adjustment quickly. And so when that happens in our body, then all of a sudden what we call, and you're explaining it well, building the wall, we enter this box around someone. And at that point in time, you have to start making them an object. So they lose their humanity and become an object so that, this is the scary part, you can justify yourself. And the key is you just didn't honor yourself. You betrayed yourself.
So how have you seen that, Scott? You've asked us, but how have you seen that in your life? Don't talk about your wife, but
you can talk about me all you want.
Well, just to build on what she was saying about the box, and when you do objectify somebody, so they're no longer a person to you, and so you can mistreat them, and whenever we do that, and then we can belittle people. We can, just treat them very poorly, and we feel justified in doing so.
And it's interesting because even if we don't do that normally, we feel justified because they're the problem or they're the object of, and they deserve this.
That's right.
And it even changes who we are and our own values. And so the self-betrayal continues to happen over and over again as we go down this spiral, I call it. It's just a downward spiral.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, can we talk about that whole making another person an object thing for a little bit? Because that was actually one thing that I had a hard time with this book. And I started kind of like playing with different language in my head because I don't identify right away with feeling like I look at other people and objectify them or see them as less than. So it took some like reading and processing for me to figure out because that language just didn't really work for me. One thing that did really make sense was just that idea of any way that I am seeing another person as less human, or like there was one part where he talked about self-betrayal being when you actively resist the humanity of others. But I think that which we're really just talking about the one book, but they have some more. And one of the later books, I think it's The Anatomy of Peace, really helped me realize, because I think I actually tend to do it in a way that almost I interact in ways where it like almost diminishes my own humanity, that I see myself as less valuable than others. And then I also have this need to maintain a sense of like being the nice person. So I almost do it in this weird reverse way of it's not like the obvious aggressive, like power over people sort of stance, but I start to diminish myself and other people equally as human. And then I start behaving badly in that, like, I let their bad behavior go and then I just grow resentment. But it's easy for me to get stuck in that because I'm not outwardly diminishing their humanity. I'm not yelling at them. I'm not belittling them. But there's this, like, it goes unchecked. We've talked before in other things where some people's bad behavior everyone really dislikes. Yeah. But my bad behavior is like a silencing of bad behavior. And most people don't know that it's happening and kind of even prefer if I don't say when I don't like how they're treating me, if I don't say. And this book really helped me see that in some ways me not speaking up is because it's like a belittling them because I almost decide they're not worth my trouble. It is a way of diminishing their humanity because I'm not willing to engage with them as a human.
Oh, yeah, that happened at Costco. I'll give you just a small little example. Just like 3 days ago, Scott looks at me and he goes, "What is wrong with you? Like, you are being irritable, and I'm now irritable with you. So what is irritating you?" And I didn't want to talk about it and so I kind of went a little silent because I'm like, you don't even want me to start talking, right? Like, you really don't want to hear what I have going on in my mind. But so we walked through, and but
smiling.
But
and nodding.
He was treating me as a person because he was calling out what it is and having a hard conversation with me. What I was doing, so when we had the conversation right by the soups, I let him. I know it, and a lot of it, right? He goes, "Well, I'm glad you told me all this." Like, a lot was on him. Right, really, like, he, in one hand, was the problem, if you will. But I wasn't treating him... So, when we got it all done, I got off my chest. Like, we were back to being equal. And really, he was more at fault, I will just say, than I was. But he treated me like a human, and I didn't treat him like a human. Because I was being quiet, trying not to go off, right? But really, that's all about me. I don't want to be seen as a mean person who's petty. And so... instead of just going, "Hey, that was really irritating to me," I just sucked it up thinking, "Oh, I'm such a good wife." So there's another place where he confronting me, would look like he was treating me humanly. Me being silent was not being human. So that's weird.
Because I can build into this. I think I enter into that because of a cultural value maybe of niceness, being nice, being kind. And so it feels very almost self-sacrificial.
Yes.
But then it can very quickly turn into this complex where I am the kind, sacrificial. Like, I've built this whole story, and it's like a way of backing myself maybe backwards into the box. I can see it real easily when people just like abusively don't see the humanity of other people. Yeah. But it's been really powerful for me to see that my kind of self-righteousness is another way of objectifying, or at least seeing people as less than fully human.
Yeah, it's so true. Well, and I see it everywhere, and I'm guilty of this too, is everyone thinks they're the one being loving, and that's not love. And it's just because people call that's not love when they don't agree with them. Like, if I don't agree with it, then it's not
If I don't
love.
like what you're
if
doing.
I don't like what you're saying, but I'm loving. Right.
Yeah.
And so what I realize is, like, we're all in the box because we all think we're the loving one, and we have objectified the person and said, "You're not loving," without ever hearing the conversation.
Now, that was a great conversation. I enjoyed that time with the Sutherlands. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Conversation with the Browns. And we're going to continue this conversation in our next episode. and check it out. We're going to talk about what it means to be in the box, how to get out of the box, and a lot of other things as well as we talk about this great book, Leadership and Self-Deception. I would suggest you pick it up. We'll put a link in the description, whether you're on Apple iTunes, Apple Podcasts. They shouldn't have switched that on. It messed me up. Google Podcasts, or even on our website, lifewiththebrowns.com. So please check us out at lifewiththebrowns.com and join us next episode as we continue this conversation on leadership and self-deception.